Good morning, my friends in Buddhist Fellowship. I'm very happy and honored to be invited today to share on the Dhamma. And I was given the freedom to choose a topic. And I would like to talk about work. My intention is to dedicate this talk to those friends of ours who feel very stressed by their work and they're not sure whether to retire or to continue working. Why are they working at all? And it's also dedicated to friends who are retired, but they're wondering what should they be doing after retirement. Yeah, and I can sense the confusion sometimes, and I hope that by just sharing on some of the teachings from the Buddha, we can have some inspiration from it. Okay, I don't think I can offer an answer, but perhaps just share with you some of the reflection that I make myself. Yeah, when it comes to this, it set me thinking a lot. Many years ago, in 2006, when we had the 6 months retreat in Maemyo in Burma, I was one of the people who are in charge, me, Greg, Gim, and Gary. So 2 of us from Singapore, 2 of them are from Australia, and then we were like managing the whole place. At the same time, I was a doctor for about 100 meditators. And so it was very nice because it's like, oh, you took 6 months leave, and it's a very refreshing period of life where you don't really go to work. It's really fresh and new. It's really interesting. And then it's all very new. We have to do a lot of gardening, doing a lot of digging, and a little bit of electricals and constructions, which I'm glad I didn't have to do that because I'm not very good at those things. But I was in charge of the medical center. So there were people with injuries, people with cough and cold, people who are very stressed, having a lot of giddiness, headache, and so on. And meditation, sometimes you never know, it can be stressful. Yeah. So some of them were like missing homes, and then they come to me because they have got a headache. Some of them were trying very hard, and then they got giddiness and so on. And some of them were really sick. And as a doctor, I really worry for them. So I was happy and meditating and caring for others. It was really simple and joyful. Until at one point in my meditation, I had some doubt about the meditation. And so my teacher asked me to go back to the previous part that I was meditating. So I have to go back and practice. And when I was doing that, for a whole month, there was no progress. And then I started to think that it is because of the clinical work that caused me to have too much worries, and it is obstructing my practice. And so I told the teacher, I said, Siale, I think being a doctor is very stressful. When I saw somebody with acute appendicitis and there is not much of a medical facilities, I have to give intravenous antibiotics, I have to watch them and monitor their vital signs. And I can't sleep well. And when I'm meditating, I worry over them. I think I don't want to be a doctor here. Then what Siale did was, she didn't tell me to carry on or not. She just looked at me with a frown that I never see in her. She's always smiling and full of metta and karuna and telling me, oh, mindful on this, what do you do when this happened and that happened. But when I tell her that I feel work is very stressful, I want to quit, then she looked at me like this. She didn't tell me to quit or not to quit, but that's it, I take that as a non-answer as well as an answer. But somehow, it just occurred to me that, what the heck? I don't care. I just want to care for the meditator. So I just didn't worry about meditation and whatever, the progress or not progress. I just gave my all to care for the people and visit them in their kutis when they are not well and so on. And then I progressed very fast. so that was very interesting for me. That in a way, when you devote to caring, there's something magical happens to your mind that is supportive of the practice. So that was a lesson at that time. Then that was an interesting thing. Then many years later, maybe around 2010, 2011, I was very active in prison counseling, going to prison, with the Singapore Buddhist Federation, and then some of the inmates, right, they really try their best to practice meditation, doing chanting, 八十八佛, and they like to learn the Dhamma. I asked them to give the Dhamma talks to themselves. I'm sitting down there. And it was a very good crowd. And some of them had a lot of faith when they're there. And then when they came out, they wanted to continue the practice. But of course, some of us are also doing such work. And we know that when they come out, it's not easy to continue. And they tend to go in again for various reasons. And one of them was like this, came out, difficult to find a job, and but still clinging on to the faith. And so I wanted to support him. I brought him to meditation and brought him to our meditation retreat. So around 2010 or 2011, we were holding a retreat in Bangkok. So the period of time where Chakavala Meditation Center, we conduct our Singapore retreat in Bangkok, Guan Yin Temple. And so he went there for the first time. He meditated very well. There's concentration. There was a sign of concentration. But after the fourth day, he started to feel this severe pain at the back. And he's like tearing and crying, and he cannot continue. He wanted to take the next train back. I encouraged him to stay, and he stayed for 1 or 2 more days, but he really wanted to go. And despite all the encouragement that I could give, and I felt that I didn't want to give up, So I went to ask my teacher, Xia Lei, she was there. Then Xia Lei told me, let him go. Then since my teacher says, let him go, so I said, okay, you can take the next train back to Singapore. So in Bangkok, there was a train station. Then he went back to Singapore. I sent him off there. Then I realized that sometimes you have to let it go. You can't try very hard. But in the same retreat, in the morning, while thinking over equanimity, letting go, and not trying very hard, I saw on the rooftop, it's a zinc roof, overlooking the zinc roof was the window at the shrine hall at the back. So there was this bat which was struggling, obviously injured, but it is too far to reach, and you can't climb onto the zinc roof because you may just fall through. So I wanted to help, but I couldn't help, and I was at my wit's end. And then I reflected, Xia Lei said, sometimes you have to let go. You can't help everyone. So I let it go. Then in the afternoon, I told Xia Lei that I learned the lesson about my friend, that sometimes we have to let go. So this morning, I saw this struggling bat. I practiced equanimity. And then she looked at me like this, you should help. So I was like, oh. Yeah. So then, okay. So that was like, maybe it is about, the middle way. Then more recently, both of these two incidents occurred around the same time. Was a friend of mine who just came back from Myanmar recently with a 1-month retreat. He has got very good result. He is an investment banker, and I think he is financially secure. He asked me out for lunch one day after the retreat. He was telling me, Wai Chong, what do you think of retirement, He's thinking of not working, maybe spend more time in practice. But he's got 2 kids, and his wife is also working. His kids are like in high school, and one of them is going to NS. And so I couldn't say to retire or not. Although I know some of you who are retired think that, oh, you should just retire, it's wonderful. But I know someone here who retired and came back to work. Yeah, so I was sharing with him my thoughts because in my work, I care for a lot of seniors, not just people who are disabled and sick, but also people who are relatively well, who just take me as their family doctor once a year, come for family health screening and just talk about things. But we also look after, not just health, physical health, but also retirement adequacy, work, recreation, and learning, lifelong learning. We also look into gender issue, women and men. They age differently, and whether the society is supporting enough men and women, how they experience aging and caregiving. And so I shared with him that aging is not easy. And just because we are financially prepared, we may not be really prepared. There is a physical health that we need to look after, and there is mental and social health, and you need to be connected and participating, and then you need to always stay curious and you keep learning, otherwise you might be marginalized. And that I see some of my friends, one of them was a very senior officer in a bank. After her retirement, after 1 or 2 years, she came back to work, came to us initially as a volunteer, then came back to work. And she said that after she retired, she realized that nobody asked her out for lunch anymore. So that was interesting because, I shared with him that sometimes work is not just for money. Sometimes it is our social network. It's also the opportunity for us to connect and care. And also because we're connected with young and old, we learn things, we don't get disconnected. And if you don't get disconnected, you don't get marginalized, and you continue for various reasons, but of course it can be very tiring. And also because of work, mental, physical health, and there's a purpose, there's a reason to wake up in the morning, you actually keep yourself quite healthy. Unlike some of my patients, there's one of them who is very, very intuitive and reflective, told me, once I told her I'm very, very stressed, I want to quit. Then she says, what's stress? I say, I'm very busy, I have to work day and night, weekends I have to work, I have to think. Oh, after this I have to go and do something, I told her. Then she says, that's so wonderful, she told me, because she told me after her stroke, she used to be a hawker, she says, when you wake up in the morning, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing for you to do. So I shared this with this friend, and I also shared with him that between these 4 pillars of aging, health and access to care, lifelong learning, participation, and income security, these are 4 pillars that we usually talk about. You need to have this component called mindfulness. So I was sharing with him this, and then after the lunch, he texted me, said that he was thankful and she knew what to do, and she continued to work. Then also a friend of mine who told me, this is the last story before I just carry on with the Buddha Dhamma. But this last story was also interesting. She said that she's very stressed at work, that she can't meditate. Because of this, she wondered whether she should quit. And then I shared with her, I mean, I do feel stressed at work too, but I mean, I can't I can't say how I experience and impose it upon her because both of us are different. But I was just checking with her, are you challenged? And she's, yes, I'm very challenged. I've never worked in this kind of place, but I've been working with MNCs, I've been working with big companies, and it's nothing as challenging as this. Then I said, yeah, sometimes when we're challenged and we exerted ourselves. We put in a lot of effort. And when we put in a lot of effort and we haven't quite got the hang of things, the frustration and the resulting suffering is also amplified. So we put in too much effort. We put in a lot of effort because we're challenged. And so it's about balancing the mind. So I shared with her this. I haven't checked with her yet since then. How has it been? But these are the reasons why I wanted to talk about this issue today. Just wondering whether have you, like some of my friends, consider, should I work or should I retire? Have you considered am I trying so hard or should I like what some of the teachers, the Buddhist teachers says, let go, why stress over this, And why are we working so hard for? Retire, then but then, the policy keeps changing. Retirement age is like the CPF withdrawal age keep going up, and then there's this pressure for us to keep working. It's not fair. So there are all these things that many Singaporeans are thinking about. So so I thought that I want to talk about work and from a Buddhist perspective. So as I mentioned, it reminded me of the teachings around the middle way, the Majjhima Padipada, right? So Samyutta Nikaya, in the Buddhist scriptures, you have got the Nikayas, right? The Digha Nikaya, or the long discourses. Anguttara Nikaya, the discourses collected in terms of numbers and gradually increasing in terms of the topics. Samyutta Nikaya is where the suttas are collected based on subjects. So this group of suttas is collected based on the conversation between the Buddha and devas, deities. And this is the very first one in Samyutta number 1, first sutta. Okay? So a deva came down to where the Buddha was staying, and very bright, like usual. And then he was a little bit proud. He asked the Buddha, "How, dear sir, did you cross the flood?" Very cryptic question. What flood? But how did you cross the flood? But the Buddha knows, the inclination of all beings. And then he said, "By not halting, friend, and by not straining, I crossed the flood." So because the Buddha knows this deva is a little bit, too much of himself, so he gave such an answer. So he becomes curious and interested. I don't understand this, By not halting and by not straining and across the flood. What do you mean? He said, "But how is it, sir, that by not halting and by not straining you cross the flood?" And then the Buddha replied, "When I came to a standstill, friend, then I sank. But when I struggled, then I got swept away. It is in this way, friend, that by not halting and by not straining, I crossed the flood." So such was the reply by the Buddha. So you can imagine you're crossing a flood, and then if you struggle, you'll be swept away, and if you stand still, you sink. So how do you cross a flood? But he crossed the flood. Huh? And what is this flood? The flood of ignorance, the flood of views, the flood of sensual pleasures, and the flood of existence. So it is you can't escape them. Okay, no matter what you do, you are somehow within these 5 aggregates, okay, of existence, and they are fed by this craving and ignorance and clinging on to some views of eternalism and nihilism. So I'm sorry I'm using all of this, but I'm actually trying to tell you about a classic Chinese novel called Journey to the West. I don't know whether you remember, there was this monkey god, Sun Wukong. So he can have 72 变, magical powers. And then he came to Rulai Fort, Tathagata, which is the Buddha. And the Buddha used can you fly over my 5 fingers? Then Sun Wukong is very proud. Of course I can. Then he just tumble. And then when he reached and pee on one of the fingers, and then he said, 到此一游, I've been here. And then when he came to the Buddha, Buddha shared with him, see, it is here. You haven't crossed the 5 aggregates, no matter how powerful you are. And then he was crushed under the mountain of the 5 aggregates for a long, long time, until Tang Seng came along. So the flood is the flood of the 5 aggregates. This is existence, which is fueled by sensual pleasures and ignorance and wrong views. So such is the flood. And how do you cross the flood? By not straining and by not standing still. So I'm going to explain in different ways here. So we have to understand the Buddha's teachings. You can go back to the first one, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So he was delivering this talk to his 5 first disciples, the 5 bhikkhus. And he explained there's this truth, the truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering, not getting what you want is suffering, being with what you dislike is suffering, and separating from what you like is suffering. In short, the 5 aggregates of clinging is suffering. That is the first truth of suffering. And the second truth of suffering, it is craving. It is craving of craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for non-existence, which really refers to craving with a wrong view of either eternalism or nihilism. So this is craving. It is the truth of the cause. And in subsequent suttas, the causation is related to a mechanism of the 12 links of dependent origination. And then there is this cessation where dukkha cease. Okay? There's deathless, there's ageless, there's no sickness, there's no suffering. That is the third truth. And the way leading to the third truth is this middle way, okay, of the Eightfold Path. So it's right view, the right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And in one of the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta, Dhammadina, which is foremost in wisdom among the nuns, the bhikkhunis, equivalent to Sariputta, he explained to another fellow disciple of the Buddha that the right speech, right action, and right livelihood is actually the training of morality, of sila. And then effort, mindfulness, and concentration is the training of samadhi, of concentration. And the right view and right thought is the training of wisdom. So this is the Eightfold Path. And if you classify them, it is the threefold training. And what is the middle way in the training of sila, of morality? So you recall the Buddha's life story. He was brought up in luxury and indulgence by his father, who was a king. So he has everything he wants. He's got a summer palace, a winter palace, and all the courtiers and music and great food. And he's got a loving wife. So that is one, Then because of his foresights, of aging, of sickness, of death, and of a monk, then he decided to search for an end to dukkha. And the first thing, after going through all the deep jhanas to the 7th and the 8th jhanas, he decided to practice asceticism, where he takes only like 1 grain a day, and so he became really, really scrawny. And after a few years, I think it's about 5 years, he abandoned the practice after listening to a teacher of a lute teaching the disciple that when the string is too tight, you can't play; it may break. If it's too loose, it doesn't produce a sound as well. So it had to be just right. And then he felt that there is an inspiration from this, and he accepted a milk gruel from the cowherd girl Sujata, and then he started to eat. And then the 5 bhikkhus who was with him abandoned him, and then he felt that that you had to avoid extreme in terms of practice. This ascetic practice is pointless. It's just suffering without a purpose. And of course, the indulgence of his previous existence is also not the right way. So it's a middle path, which is the right speech, right action, and right livelihood, which is your 5 or 8 precepts for lay people. For a monk, it will be the Vinaya rules. And in mind training, the middle way in mind training was not obvious in the Buddha life stories, but I learned it from my teachers and also from Visuddhimagga. But this is a story to sort of illustrate it. I heard this story from Siali Dipankara. He said there was a fisherman who caught 3 fishes, and he put the 3 fish into the basket. And the basket, you can imagine, is like a vase shape and with a spout, and you're on a sampan, always rocking. And there are 3 fish. And the first fish gave up. He felt that, oh, this is my fate. There's nothing I can do. I am caught. So I will just let go and die. Okay? The second fish believed in effort. So he jumped and jumped and jumped and jumped, trying to hit the spout and jump out of the spout of the basket into the sea. And then the fisherman saw this fish jumping and struggling. Immediately he used a knife and just killed it. And the third fish was observing, this fish has given up, that fish was struggling. So for this fish, he stays still and just observe the sampan rowing side by side. And then the spout is like, sometimes you can see the sea, sometimes you don't see the sea, sometimes you can see the sea, sometimes you don't see the sea. Then he just make a determination, and because he has a desire for freedom, then he make a determination, and then at the right time, put in effort and jump, and then out into the open sea. Meditation is like this, okay? You mindful on the breath, okay? Then sometimes, mindful on the breath. Initially, a bit difficult. You put in more effort. Sometimes too much effort. You feel the touch sensation very hard. You have to let go a little bit. Then you feel very tense. You don't feel like sitting. Every time you want to sit, you're scared of sitting. Relax and sit. It's like the easiest thing in the world. Then you sit, then you will doze off. Oh, cannot. Teacher say must put in effort. Put in effort. Then you too strained. Then you feel very scared of sitting, then you relax, then you sit down and you relax. Maybe you doze off a little bit, but slowly you get the hang of it. And then when the mind is really, really comfortable, alert, but not agitated, relaxed, but not lazy, and then the mind just stay very comfortable with the breath. It becomes like wave, wave, And then without being worried that you lose a breath, you don't cling on to the touch. You just stay with the breath. Because if you're worried about losing the breath, you cling on to the touch, and then you're practicing 4 elements. So you don't, you just stay with the breath. You know that you're not dead, so you have breath. And the breath is always here, okay? And then you just know, by virtue of the touch, you know the breath, but the breath is not the touch. So you stay with the breath, and then you feel like a wave and very comfortable. Got progress, good. No progress, also good. Just stay with it, and then you see the light. Okay? And then as you continue with it, and then the light become really close and bright and clear. And then once the breath and the light becomes fused into one, it is like the fish seeing the ocean is there, fused into one, and it's really, really clear and very, very peaceful. You drop the breath and take the light as the object. and then just stay with it, and then the mind just sink. So this is the analogy of the fish. Okay, so this is the middle way. So in the commentarial text, okay, it is explained that there are 37 factors that contributes to enlightenment, the 37 bodhipakkhiyas, and there are the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 right striving, the 4 bases of success, the 5 faculties, this one, the 5 powers, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and then the Noble Eightfold Path. So all of these are about the middle way, but the 5 spiritual faculties was the one that I found very useful. So if you read the Samyutta Nikaya, it is explained like this. A person with faith, after seeing the Buddha, inspired emotionally, not just intellectually, wants to be like him, or wants to be an enlightened disciple of his, and trusts his teachings, okay? And believe that his teaching is right, and trust that there is a third truth of Nibbana, and then go forth. So this is faith. With faith, you believe that you can and you want, so there's desire of attainment, okay? With desire, there is determination. With determination, there is effort. So this is how faith leads to effort and energy. So what is energy? Energy is not energy physically, but it is a mental energy that props up the mental factors that makes your mind alert. So with faith, you're inspired, you have a desire because it is possible, somebody has done it in front of you, and you make a determination because the Buddha made determination under the Bodhi tree. Okay? And then with that determination, there is energy and give rise to energy. And when there's energy, you put the energy to direct the mind on the foundations of mindfulness. Okay? So it depends on your stage of practice. Some of us start with breath, some of us start with the sensations of the body into the 4 elements. Some of us start with the 32 parts of the body or the kasina and so on. So you place your mindfulness on the first subject. And then when there's a hang of it and you are able to be staying mindful, the concentration gain momentum. Concentration is the mind very, very still. It is one-statedness of the mind. And then there's concentration. And when there's concentration, the mind is very, very still and peaceful. The intuition is very sharp. That is wisdom. Okay? Intuition, supported by concentration, is very clear. You don't need intellectualization. You don't need to use logic. You know this is the right thing to do. That is the question. This is not the question. You can understand why and hows of things and the what of the things. So that is wisdom. So according to the commentary, the proximate cause for wisdom is concentration. Okay? So with faith, you have energy, you have mindfulness, you have concentration, and you have wisdom. However, there are some people have too much faith. Everything they trust, okay? Oh, this one very, very ling. Okay, go and bye. This monk is an arahant. Oh, go and dana. Oh, that nun is an Arya, I go and dana. So, and then that one is, that guru is really, really good, I go, Too much faith, not enough wisdom. You tend to be too quick to make decisions and then be very rash, and then your 5 faculties are not balanced and it topples. But there are also some people, okay, by then that faith is not faith already, it's just naivety, okay? But there are some people who are, they shun blind faith because they encounter the Buddha's teachings because his families or friends, they have too much superstition. He doesn't want a religion that is superstitious. So he likes to read, likes to study, likes to quote. So very academic. And then he likes to ask a lot of questions and investigate. And then for 20 years has been studying Buddhism but never have a teacher. And always go for retreat, but after a few days he thinks that this one may not be right. Okay, And then maybe it's like someone who is always having many girlfriends or boyfriends but never really fallen in love. So people like that, too much intellectual so-called wisdom, not enough faith, can never decide. Know how to make decision, can even give a talk about making decision, but never dare to take a decision. So too much wisdom and no faith, not balance. Okay? And there are some who are very energetic, Oh, teacher asked me to sit, I sit. No concentration, I sit for 5 hours. 4 hours, okay? Someone said for 5 hours, okay, I need to sit for 5 hours. Wow, it's very difficult, but cannot. Or that the leg is very painful, I cannot move. Then you're like, whole hours, you're like sweating. It's very painful, but cannot move. And then at the end of the hour, no concentration, just a lot of agitation. And but you have a lot of faith and energy. And then the next time you're coming to sit, you're actually very scared of sitting. Okay? Then you sit again, then it's really tolerated through the 2 hours. And then after that, you cannot carry on. It's not sustainable. There's too much energy, not enough concentration, not enough stillness, Then there are some people, they are very well endowed. They sit quietly, they got concentration, and they just stay with the concentration. Don't know why people fuss over effort. There's no need for effort, just sit still only. And no need for effort, don't need to do anything. Just sit still, want to sleep, go and sleep. Okay, then just sit still. And then very easily, they got nimitta, and then they just sit still. But after a while, they go into a blank. There's nothing. And then they come out. Oh, where did the hour go? That must be Nibbana. They have fallen into daze. A daze is like a semi-sleep. When the mind is very dull and you're tired, or the mind is too dull, you're actually like, sometimes I don't know whether you've experienced this. You're so tired, you listen to somebody talking and then your eyes just go blank. Imagine your eyes is closed. It's like you're surrounded by the breath and it's very bright, and then after that you just stay in the brightness and okay. Then when you come out of meditation, there's nothing. That's not concentration. Okay, that is sleep, or kind of daze. You need to balance concentration and effort. Need to balance wisdom and faith. Mindfulness at the center, always necessary. The more, the better. Okay. So the Buddha in one of the suttas in Anguttara Nikaya says, a skillful meditators, like a goldsmith, from time to time need to attend to the sign of concentration. From time to time need to attend to the sign of energy. From time to time need to attend to the sign of equanimity. If he doesn't, if he always focus on concentration, he'll be lazy. If he's always focused on energy, he'll be agitated and restless. If he's always equanimous, he'll become dull and bored. Just like a goldsmith, when he's trying to smelt and purify gold, from time to time he has to blow for the heat to be higher, fire to be higher. From time to time, he had to spray with a bit of water to cool it down. From time to time, he shouldn't put water, nor should he put more wind. He has to leave it to just continue on. So this is the meditator's mind. From time to time, you need to exert energy. From time to time, you need to relax. From time to time, you should do nothing. Don't overdo, okay? From time to time, you need to energy, relax, do nothing, relax further, do nothing, energize a little bit, do nothing. So it is like this for a whole hour, 2 hours, a meditator. So this is the balancing of the 5 faculties. And the 7 factors of enlightenment, I'll just talk briefly. It has the same meaning, okay? It begins with mindfulness. And when there's mindfulness, there's a subject of mindfulness. You investigate the subject, and that's investigation of Dhamma, which is equivalent to the mental factor of wisdom. When you investigate, there is a lot of, you get into a zone, there's energy. When there's energy and there's investigation, there's joy. When there's joy, the mind is tranquil easily. When it is tranquil, you concentrate easily. With concentration, you become equanimous. Okay? And sometimes you need to balance the two sides. Okay? The mind is a bit too dull. You need to emphasize more on what is the breath. Where is my mind? That is investigation Dhamma. Okay? How wonderful that is joy. I need to practice. I need to know the breath. I shouldn't have wandering thoughts. So you put in your mind. So that is effort. So this is on one side. But sometimes you're very agitated and restless. You're trying to investigate. Is this a breath or is that the breath? Is the breath here or there? You need to relax. No? Equanimity, concentration means just staying still, and then tranquility. Balance the mind. Mindfulness at the center, always important. And in the third part of the training, which is a training of wisdom, there's also understanding. There's also a middling view. That's why in ancient India, there is this teacher. At that time, there were many sectarian views. And then he came forward and talked about the middle view, the view of emptiness. And then his teachings became well known. And there was a school of Prajna Paramita. I don't know whether you heard of this. And that is Nagarjuna. And then his treatise is called the, I can't remember, Madhyamika Karika. The theory of the middle view or something. Zhonglun, the Chinese call Zhonglun. Neither one extreme nor the other extreme. And the two extremes are the eternalism view and the nihilistic views. In Yuan Shu Jiao, in Theravada tradition, if you go into the Pali Canon, the Digha Nikaya, there's this Brahma Jala Sutta, which is the first one. The Buddha enumerated 62 views, and all of them fall on either one side or the other side. The one side are the eternalistic people. The views of eternalism are people who believe that there is a permanent soul. There is a permanent being that we unite with him or we live with him. There is a creator. There is eternal life, and it is possible. And this life is only dream-like. It's not real, you know. And there are certain purpose for this life, either because it's a test, it's a trial, it's a place for you to tolerate, and then you just keep your good deeds, and then you can be united with the grand, ancient, permanent soul. Okay, so that's eternalistic view. There are many teachings and spiritual practices and religions is like this. But people in this view, they generally do believe in the efficacy of morality or karma. There is a certain ethical principles in this universe. So between the two views, this is still a better one. The other side is the nihilistic views. The nihilistic views are people who are purely empirical. Only things that can be seen or heard or whatever that can be measured. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Okay, so whatever we think, our mind and our activities are all brain, and the brain is just chemicals, and the chemicals are carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, some minerals, you know, effects through enzymatic reactions. So enzymes, like catalysts of chemical reaction, they have a certain shape because they are proteins, engage a certain receptor, which is also protein, trigger a chain reaction, give rise to different things such as thinking, such as memory, mood. And then the muscles are just proteins. And then when we die, it's ashes to ashes, dust to dust. There's nothing. If you do any good things, it's so that because you want people to like you. And why you need people to like you? So that you can get money, so that you can have food, so that you can feed your body, so that you can enjoy life. So people in this view tends to be towards the hedonistic existence. I mean, life is for the enjoyment. Okay? When life is no longer enjoyable, it's suffering, then there is no qualms about killing yourself. Okay? There's no qualms about killing suffering, except for because there's a law that I cannot kill, you know. So, I mean, I'm talking in extreme terms here, but you know what I mean. The nihilistic views do not believe in a kind of universal morality law. Morality is relative, is human world defined. So that is one extreme. But the Buddha's teachings is neither of this. Okay, the Buddha's teachings, in terms of the understanding, is the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. It is impermanent. Because it is impermanent, it is oppressed helplessly by impermanence. That's why, if you really press through, it is helpless. And this helplessness is the suffering that we all tolerate, even if it is happiness. Even when there is wisdom, that is impermanent and helplessly so. Even if you're reborn as a deva, as a brahma, as a hell being, it is impermanent and you're oppressed by it up and down incessantly. No rest, no peace. Any peace is only transient, it's only conditioned, and it is while it lasts. So it is this oppression that is dukkha. And it's not always unpleasant. Even pleasant feeling is also dukkha. So this is the first noble truth of impermanent dukkha, and because it is impermanent and suffering, nothing is really yours, you, or yourself. So this is non-self. So the first truth, the second noble truth is the truth of causation, ignorance, craving for sensual pleasures, existence and non-existence, which is founded upon the other side of the coin of wrong views, okay? Of views of eternalism or nihilism. So it's ignorance-based. So, and it is culminated in the dependent origination. 12 links of dependent origination in that picture. And the third noble truth of cessation, when ignorance is eradicated, there's no longer the chain reaction of everything else. That's dependent cessation. And the way leading to this is the practice of morality, of concentration, and of wisdom. So this is the middle understanding. So if you use the middle understanding, you look at life itself. We are born and we grow up. We have got a body and we've got a mind, and we've got the six sense bases like the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind. And then it is born because, based on the 12 links of dependent origination, there is a wish to be alive, to be around. In order to, because why? Because previously of the contact of sensual pleasures of the eye, the ears, the lifestyles, the things, and then we are attached to them without realizing. And then we cling on to them like an addiction, like an addict. And then we do various things, whether good things or bad things. The wise people will do the good things in order to continue the sensual enjoyment. So such is the understanding. And because we do good things and it's underpinned by a wish to continue the existence, the lifestyle. So we create karma, good and bad. So good karma create good outcome. Bad karma create bad outcome. And all of these are supported by what? By food, okay? So, because we are born in order to enjoy life, whether you realize it or not, we are born to enjoy life. So, we need to move around in order to experience good life with your eyes, your ears, and so on. In order to move around, you need fuel, energy, and the energy is your food that you eat, and it will feed your mind and feed your body, and then so that the mind can cause the body to move around to experience life. And because this life has got its own conditions, we need to make money in order to use the money in exchange for enjoyment in life. And then we think that to rob, to steal is really stupid. Okay, so we find a job and then we work. Then we get all this, Then, of course, many of us are educated by the Buddha and maybe by other religion. We know that even if you choose a job, you want to choose one which is relatively easy on the soul, okay? Easy on the mind. So we choose a good livelihood. So I'm going to just discuss on work now, based on Buddha's teachings, okay? Just some questions, and then I don't really have all the answers, but I'm not a sociologist. Work is sociology, related. Work is social, but I just want to use this questioning and then just explore. Must work make money or make a living? Then I was thinking about this. I think some people are doing housework, like housewives, they don't make money, but maybe there's some arrangement in the household that while I work, you clean up the house or take care of the children. Or some daughters or the sons, they take care of their parents. There's no money, but there are, a lot of hard work. And some people, they have made their millions, so they're doing volunteer work in Buddhist fellowship or, some other places. So it's volunteer work, it's not in exchange for money. But generally, when people talk about work, people do talk about making a living. So maybe, for example, if you're in a household, there's a division of labor. So while the wife works, the husband stay behind, take care of the children, or the other way around. So it's like a joint effort to do something for each other. So in a way, it may not always make money, but there's always, but you need to make a living. Even for monks, they don't make money. They have to go for alms round in order to have the food to eat and then to feed the body. Must work make a change and create value, gives return on investment, have a purpose? Well, most people go to work for a purpose, Why they have to work? Most people simply, you have to make a living. You have to make money. Sometimes they got some spare time, they actually think deeper. They think that work gives us money so that I don't have to depend on others, okay? So that I can buy things that I like. I can have freedom. So they want to, in exchange for some kind of tangible values. But there are also people who feel that it shouldn't be just for tangible values because life is short and they have experienced the feel-good factor of doing good deeds. So they think that work must have extra meaning to this. It has to be a sense of mission. Like for example, if I'm a road sweeper, okay, it's for the money, but I'm cleaning the street so that people can feel happy, okay? Or I'm a teacher, okay? Although I make money, but I'm actually focused on caring for these kids so that they can be contributing members of the society. Or I'm a doctor, so same. But also there are some doctors or some teachers not always so wholesome, it's just work. The mind, is very different for different people. So generally speaking, I suppose work, you usually have a motive, an intention behind it. It could be money, it could be favor, it could be for some ideologies that you believe in or for some mission or calling that you have in your life. Must it be of value to someone other than oneself? Then I thought about, well, there are some people who like to do horticulture at home, gardening. Then that maybe you can call it a hobby, okay? Or that there are some people they paint. But usually there is a financier to support. Maybe this painting is of value to the financier. And a housewife who is working, and then it's a value to the kids and the husband. So my thought is this. Work, can be for oneself or others, but generally if it sort of translates into exchange of resources, it must be of value to others, even if it is a kind of an investment if you're working as a scientist in a lab, even practicing, investigating in basic sciences, somebody else believes in the value in it, Or if you're doing some kind of charity, some funders believe in the value in that. So it is a value to somebody else. Even when we dana to monks, we think that this is a value to us because they are the field of merits for the world. And the Buddha wants his disciples to go to the villages and take alms round so that the monks are continued to be supported by the villagers, and the villagers have a connection with inspiring people so that they actually benefited from this. So in a way, I suspect work is a social event. It's not just for oneself. Even your intention is for yourself, but whatever you produce is a value to the society or other people. This is physics, huh? Work is energy times distance. So I'm thinking, it's work, energy times distance. Then I think, most of my work nowadays make me put on weight. So there are work related to speech and then mind, decision, taking the risk, taking the blame if I have to. So some work is not physical, but is mental and speech related. Must it be wholesome? Well, it depends, Sweeping the floor, is it wholesome? Depends on what you think. If you're sweeping the floor and always thinking about anger at the society, or that when we're in meditation retreat, we have to do a lot of work, doing horticulture, gardening, sweeping the whole big monastery. If you're unhappy, it's unwholesome. But if you're sweeping the floor and you reflect, even Siale said, Shariputta, Venerable Shariputta, always in Jetavana, he has to sweep the floor. Even an Arahant, chief disciple of the Buddha, have to sweep the floor. So you just, wow, even Shariputta sweep the floor, then you sweep the floor. Huh? So it can be wholesome, it can be unwholesome. So it's not always wholesome. And you think doctors are wholesome? Not always. Huh? Our mind change all the time. Huh? And then I'm bilingual, so work is 工作 and karma is 业. And in Chinese, career is 事业. So I think actually work is karma, but it is karma of the body, speech and mind on a mission, but there's also some tangible benefits, I'm thinking, based on the reflection earlier. So if I were to consider it like this and take into account dependent origination teaching, so karma is actually cetana, the volition, because what the Buddha said, cetana or volition is karma. It is the mind, the mental factor of governizing the whole mind effort in order to effect an outcome, that you want. So that is karma. So that's volition. And at the same time, the volition is supported by effort, determination, supported by desire. And it gives rise to expression through the speech and the body and also your livelihood. The livelihood is all your body and mind, you're just participating in a socially organized things that sort of allow you to get some kind of resources for yourself. And so this whole activities is supported by nutriment. Nutriment is like the food, but in its most ultimate form, supporting your mind and your energy, your eyes and your ears, and allows your body to move, you to speak, to effect work. And that is a condition for this karma translating into body, speech, and livelihood actions. And there is an intention behind it. The intention is the purpose that I referred to just now. It's the answer to the question why. Why do you do what you do? That's the intention. And I put in fine print or gray fonts that you cannot see so clearly because it is not easily seen. Or intention, wholesome or unwholesome. Wholesome, for example, I'm trying to save the world. Unwholesome, for example, I'm trying to take revenge. All intention is rooted in some kind of ignorance and craving. Because that's in the teachings of dependent origination. And with your expression of your intention through your speech, your body, and your livelihood, there will be results. And if there's success, you will have desired outcome and you're appreciated because I mentioned just now, work is related to the value in other people's eyes as well. It's social. And then you can exchange for resources, either in the form of money or food or other kinds of physiological resources. And there is great satisfaction and joy. I put the satisfaction and joy in one color and desire, effort, and volition in same color is because I find that there are links. If you put in a lot of effort, the joy will be very great. If you put in very little effort, it's not much of a joy. And whether you achieve this desired outcome it's not always entirely due to your action. It's also related to past karma ripening and also other conditions, because it can go both ways. So when you achieve your outcome, you feel satisfied, it feeds into your intention, Oh, this, I got it, and this is work. That God is great, okay, or that there is efficacy to karma, okay, so there is this feedback into this intention, but also because you appreciated the resources, it feeds you your nutriment, and nutriment support your mental volition, mental action, as well as your speech, body, and your livelihood. When the conditions are obstructing, you will have frustration, you have challenge, and then you feel helpless, and then you get unhappy. So you get grief, unhappiness, dissatisfaction, disappointed, anxiety, and so on. So same color as your effort and your determination, your desire. The stronger your effort, the stronger your desire, the stronger your determination, the stronger is your volition, and the worse is the frustration, the worse is the helplessness. Okay? And when people are like that, suffering, so much suffering, what will they do? Sometimes they stay committed, they put in even more effort, and they try to figure things out. And then they go back to this. And then when the conditions are right, they may succeed. When the conditions are not right, they may fail again and again and again. Until one day, they decided to give up. They lose their conviction, they can't figure things out, then they stop trying, and then the mind goes into doubt, determinism, thinks that they're not fated to succeed. And then they don't put in effort, they just let go. And then they seek instant gratification, because after all, we are born to enjoy life. So what is there to do except to enjoy life? So I heard that Bhutan, the whole field is filled with marijuana. So I can just smoke marijuana. It's one of my colleague said no wants to go to Bhutan because there's marijuana everywhere. Then I scolded him. It's a cycle of addiction. I'm not sure whether you've encountered people who are addicted to video games, YouTube, social media, cigarette, alcohol, drugs. There's something about it here. They give up, and they need instant gratification, and it finds everything is meaningless, and it is also supported by the intention. Initially, you may have different kinds of intention, but ultimately, the most primitive one is ignorance, craving, and clinging to sensual pleasures, existence or non-existence. And then by here, because of so much failure, they no longer believe in law of karma, morality, and then so they believe in non-existence. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. There's nothing worth it. If you're not happy, there's no problem killing yourself. So it sort of feed into this mode of thinking. And when I recall the first sutta that the Buddha taught, if you stand still, you sink. And if you struggle, you get swept away. So you can think about, if the suffering is that bottom yellow box, if you stay committed, it is straining and struggling. You continue with the cycle. And if you let go and fed up and indulge, it is halting and sinking. Okay? So the top cycle, it need not be wholesome, but it can be wholesome. So according to a commentary to that particular sutta, mundane wholesome karma, it is a kind of struggling. Unwholesome karma is a kind of halting. Okay? And then you just do this. So what is the middle way? Okay? I'm finishing my last slide now. So I'm just going to read this, maybe explain a little bit. If work is karma, then unless one is a fully enlightened arahant, one cannot avoid work. Might as well make work wholesome. So that's the first point I want to make. Overexertion gives rise to restlessness, agitation, carelessness, and reinforces ignorance. I mentioned, put too much effort, you get very agitated, and then when you don't get what you want, you get very, very dejected. Laziness gives rise to non-achievement, dissatisfaction, indulgence in instant gratification, meaninglessness, and reinforces ignorance. So overexertion is like straining, and laziness is like halting. A balanced mind can stay mindful and concentrate easily. So that is the teaching of training of concentration. Mindful mind is a wholesome mind, good karma. So when your mind is mindful, the mind is respectful. Okay? And then when the mind is mindful and respectful, the cetana is not tainted by delusion, by greed, or by hatred. It is good karma. So a wholesome mind is a mindful mind. Mindfulness should be coupled with clear comprehension. If you read the suttas, frequently the Buddha always say sati sampajanya. So sati is mindfulness, sampajanya is clear comprehension. You always couple one another. Mindfulness is like the light, and clear comprehension is like seeing. Okay? So clear comprehension in the commentarial text, it is explained like this. It's clarity of purpose, clarity of resort, clarity of domain, and clarity of the truth. So this, I think, is worthwhile explaining because I find it very valuable at work. Whatever you do, you need to be clear, what are you doing for? What is your intention? Sometimes it is very superficial, just trying to make money. But you have to probe further. Why are you making money? Because I'm insecure. Okay, but say I'm no longer insecure. Why am I making money? Because I want to be independent. Anything else? Maybe after you got married, you got kids. Because of compassion for my children and my wife and my parents. And maybe when you realize that when you are well established financially, you can do big and good things. You can do more. You can help more. So when you start to explore, your work take on different purpose and different meaning. So if you understand, if you remember the eightfold path, the second one, the right thought of non-hatred, which is loving kindness, thought of non-cruelty, which is compassion, thought of renunciation, which is generosity. So with this right thought, you actually can continue with your wholesome eightfold path. So when you start to question your purpose, work take deeper and deeper meaning. So that's the first clarity. The second clarity is resort. Resort is about strategy. What is the right thing to do so that I can have the biggest bang for the buck, biggest outcome with the smallest input, so that because resources are limited, I can do the most in the most efficient way. Also, the strategy also involves what do I do to create the greatest good and the least harm. So there's an ethical question to it. Am I right to do it like this when I can harm these people along the way? Or should I take this one which is less harmful? So this is the clarity of resort. The third clarity is a clarity of domain. That is when we need domain knowledge, it's technical understanding. So as a doctor, I need to always stay abreast of the latest innovation and knowledge in medicine. So same with other professions. You need to stay in tune with whatever is related to your domain knowledge. So for the monk, in the commentarial text, the domain is your subject of meditation. Breath is very simple, but some people are not sure what breath is. 4 elements, some people are not sure what 4 elements is. So you need to have domain knowledge. But meditation is not just domain knowledge, it's about mental training. So remember that. And the last one is the clarity of truth. It's always at the back of your mind, you know, impermanent suffering, non-self. Things happen because of causes, and not just one cause, but many causes. There are paramis, there are karma in the past, there are past lives, and there are conditions such as habits, and there are conditions related to physical law, to biological law as well. So you need to have all this in your mind, and so when you achieve success, you know it's not entirely due to you. When you fail, you also know it's not entirely your fault. Maybe 70% effort, but sometimes maybe 50%. So you never really know. So also aware of the truth is like you see other people doing things because you can't read their minds. You have to tell, you know that the behavior and the speech is not the real thing, it's not the whole truth. You can't read their minds, you can't judge anyone, right? And then also, mind is like shifting all the time. There's no good or bad guys, only good or bad mind moments, right? So this is wisdom. Clarity of this four clarity or clear comprehension is always with mindfulness. So mindfulness and clear comprehension, they are like right and left foot. Right foot, left foot. Mindful, clarity. Mindful, clarity. And that is the middle way. Okay? Mindful, clarity. Wisdom is not your thinking, it's not your perception. Ajahn Chah says that. Don't trust your thoughts. Thoughts and perceptions are deceptive. Work on causes and conditions with wisdom, and the desired outcomes will come naturally. And the proximate cause for wisdom is concentration. So you have to invest in meditation. And lastly, real retirement is Nibbana. Strictly speaking, right? So those who say, oh, I'm retired, you should quickly retire. Have you arrived at Nibbana? If you're not, your retirement, you're just changing your karma to different things. Hopefully you're doing wholesome volunteer work after retirement, or caring for grandchildren, or think there is a chore, but switch your mind. I'm supporting them so that they're supporting my children because I care and love them. And initially it's attachment, but then later you think, I have to let go, and they are not really mine, but we are together because of past karma, so I really care for them. So you switch your mind, and from unwholesome it becomes wholesome intention, and then the karma is very good, okay? But always back of my mind, we know that as long as we're not fully enlightened, there's ignorance and craving that's motivating all this, and then there will be a karmic force that result in rebirth, and good karma begets good rebirth. So with that, I thank you. Sorry for a very long talk. I overshot by 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So
we have time for Q&A or
brothers and sisters, it's time for Q&A session. If you have any doubts or any questions you want to ask. Any question from the floor? Just raise your hand. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Ng. Actually, I got a very great issue actually haunting me currently for my work. Actually, my stress is not from the workload or the work structure. Actually, it's mainly from my boss alone. Because I feel that no matter how hard I try, I don't feel appreciated. Why I perceive this is because the way how he interact with me is quite hurtful. Like sometimes he will just scolded me vulgarities for no reason. Then he just, when I try to be more serious when we talk about the work-related issues, then he will just anyhow, say anything. It's like maybe sometimes they will just attack me. They will just say, oh, your personality is like that, not good here and there. Then I don't see any hope actually in him at all. It's like everything is very negative. So sometimes I thought I have a positive motivation whereby, okay, if I keep trying, so one day everything will be okay. So I still have that hope, but unfortunately, they always say, you cannot change. It's that already. So no matter how hard, it's like that. So in this situation, so negative, seriously, although I try to, think of the Dharma concepts, but still very hurtful. Like, even until affected my work life, no, not only work life, actually my personal life also. It's like very, very hurtful, but I don't know what to do. Is there any advice for this kind of situation? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. it's not for me to say what is the next thing for you to do, because I'm sharing with you, it's not intellectual, such decisions. But when you were asking the question, you reminded me of this one just now. If you can look at the this part. Okay. You see, a lot of time we do work. Although there are many intentions that we have, money is one thing. We also want some kind of things that we do. We can learn. We can engage with people, but we also want to be appreciated. We want our work to mean something to others. And when it is not appreciated, and we put in so much effort, we actually can feel really, really bad, especially if we put in a lot of effort. And sometimes what we do is we don't put so much effort. When we don't put in so much effort, we don't feel so bad. And then after a while, we may actually become deterministic and become self-indulgent. We don't care about work. Of course, we can say that this boss is a bad manager, but I really don't know because I don't know him. I haven't seen him and I can't read the minds. But what I know is good intention, hard work, determination, by right should result in the right result. But sometimes they don't because of something else are not there. Maybe the past karma is obstructing. Maybe you haven't quite fully figured out what this boss wants. Maybe you were working very hard on something technical, but he is expecting something else, like the way you talk, the way you figure things out, and other things, So we don't really know. So one way, instead of just banging your head against the wall, is to find out humbly and respectfully, because good karma is respectful. So you can actually ask your boss, I really hope I can be of value to you, and I really like this job, or I need this job. I wonder whether you can teach me anything that I can do that to improve on my work, and please help me, something like this. And maybe he can guide you. And if not, then maybe it's other HR channels. So I can't say whether you should quit or to stay because I can't read karma, okay? But if you continue to struggle without figuring out, we can just become really, really grieved. It's struggling, But I say if we take a step back and stay mindful, meaning stay wholesome, and then question why, how, and the what's. So maybe it's related to resort, clarity of resort. Is this the right approach? What is the right strategy? Or domain knowledge? Do I need to get further training in certain things? Do I need to get the right thing to do? Sometimes you need a conversation, with the boss. And that is the most practical I can think of as an advice. Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe we can have one more last question.
Thank you, brother, for your inspiring speech. I would like to ask, under the 5 spiritual faculties, right? You talk about the energy and concentration, faith and wisdom, but didn't touch much on the mindfulness part. Yeah, would you like to elaborate on it more? Yeah.
So in both 5 faculties and the 7 factors of enlightenment, mindfulness need not be balanced. The more, the better. Mindfulness is a phenomenon. Okay, it's very difficult to describe, but mindfulness feels like the mind is guarding its object, and both are guarded. The mind and is guarding the object, and both are guarded. It's a guardianship of the mind and the object. The mind feels like it's sinking in and it's not floating away. And this need not be balanced. But what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is this mental phenomenon, and the right mindfulness is that this is mindful on either the body, okay, or mental phenomenon. In the fourth foundation of mindfulness, it emphasizes feelings, mind state, and mind phenomenon according to the categorization and teachings of the Buddha. So these four areas. So when you're practicing meditation, you're mindful of the body, of the breath, or the sensations, the four elements, the parts of the body like the head, hair, the skin, or external bodily phenomenon like a corpse. Okay, the color of the corpse or the color of your own internal organs, the color, you can use that as your mindfulness object, and you stay with it, and it gives rise to very, very deep and profound stillness. And that is the practice of mindfulness on the body. And then once the mind is very, very still, you can emerge from it and then check the mind state. The most obvious of the mind state is feeling. Happy feeling, unhappy feeling, neutral feeling. So this feeling is the second foundation of mindfulness. So you can feel the happy feeling. When you feel the happy feeling, because of concentration, you can feel them as actually always arising and passing away. So that is the mindfulness. And then when you emerge, when you just put a bit more effort and just know things, you know that there are different kinds of minds happening in a being, you know. Some minds are wholesome, some minds are unwholesome. Some wholesome minds are very, very still and very, very lofty. Some wholesome minds are just wholesome minds. You know? Some unwholesome minds are stricken with delusion, some aversion, and some greed. So you actually analyze the mind state. That is the third foundation of mindfulness. And then when you continue to practice, you actually can see what the Buddha taught, the 5 hindrances. Oh, this is aversion mind. This is craving for sensual pleasures mind. This is restless mind. This is doubtful mind. And this is sleepy mind. Then you can actually feel the 5 hindrances. They arise and pass away. Then you can see also based on the 6 sense doors, when you see something, the mind have a reaction. You hear something, the mind has a reaction. And then you can analyze the cause of this, and you can actually analyze what caused this. It's due to ignorance, craving, karma, giving rise to these whole episodes of contact and all that. So this is the whole practice of mindfulness, all the way to Four Noble Truths and realizing Nibbana. From the body, because body is a good way to arrive at concentration. Concentration as a basis. The mind is very bright. You can see something subtle like feelings, even more subtle like mind, and then all the phenomenon related by the Buddha in the 4 foundations. So mindfulness is the beginning of the 37 factors of enlightenment, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and the more the better. No need to be balanced.
Okay. Thank you once again to Dr. Ang for such an insightful talk. Let us rejoice in the Dhamma that has been shared by saying sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.